Committee of the Whole for the City of Highland Park, March 30th, 2026. Councilmember Tapia has joined us, thank you. And you want to take it away, son? Thank you.
Mayor, since you're reconvening, you should hit just call the roll for the record.
We need to call the roll again for the record, thank you.
Councilmember Center, Councilmember Brockman. Here. Councilmember Ross. Here. Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Littleworth. Here. Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Mayor Lord.
Here, we have a quorum. Thank you, City Manager Newkirk, for taking the next part of this conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for public information, just do want to share with the public that we held this rescheduled regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole. We started at 4:30. We have a tour of the Public Service Center, which includes the Departments of Public Works and Community Development. And then we also toured Fire Station off of Half Day Road as it pertains to this overall project. Also just want to take a moment to thank all the elected officials, the mayor and council members for scheduling time to meet with Director Bannon, Director Matthew, and I to talk about this project as well in preparation for this meeting. So the content of those private conversations pretty much mirrors what we're going to present in public this evening. We have followed up on some of your questions, and so hopefully we've addressed most of what you've asked for. Some things that require additional work and follow up with our team will be forthcoming. But this is an overview of what we're going to cover at this meeting. And then just kind of
pause you for 1 second,
Yes.
and we could take care of business and approve our minutes from
Of
our
course.
prior meeting, which I
Of course.
forgot to do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to do that to you. But if I could have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole from February 23rd, 2026, and the joint special meeting of the Committee of the Whole with the Historic Preservation Commission held on March 9th, 2026.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, thank you.
Okay,
All right,
thank
back to you.
All right, back to our regular program. Okay. So just kind of looking ahead, these are the policy questions that we're seeking your feedback on this evening. One, we're going to present information about the Route 41 pedestrian bridge. We talked about this at a previous Committee of the Whole meeting. Hopefully everyone remembers this project. We are looking for your feedback this evening of whether or not there's an interest to do the full redevelopment, reconstruction of that bridge at an estimated cost of more than $10 million, or to do the rehabilitation, estimated cost of $2.4 million. The timing of this, as shared at the last Committee of the Whole meeting, is just very sensitive because if we are gonna do the $10 million, we need to provide information because we've got ITEP funding that's involved and the letting is tentatively scheduled for April. If we're not gonna do that, we wanna give notice of the intent that we cannot use those funds because those funds can only be used for construction, not rehabilitation. So we need to provide that notice, and then we would move forward with rehabilitation per the council's direction. We're going to present, as indicated previously, other revenue options. If there's something that you want us to look into further, we will go back, work with our team. We have a special workshop on May 18th, so we'll come back at that meeting and present follow-up information. And then just for the purpose of kind of discussion tonight, we are looking at an estimated $40 million infrastructure investment project. And so we're presenting some different options in terms of financing that and looking at some revenue options as well to offset expenses. So again, looking for your feedback as it pertains to that project. So first, we're going to want to walk through some assumptions just to make sure we are on the same page. Fiscal stability and public safety are two of the city's top priorities. So this is on every single page in the budget. It's on all the PowerPoint presentations that we give, so you can see the bubbles there on the bottom right side of the screen. So this is really of utmost importance, certainly to the mayor and council, certainly important to our staff. So you thinking of those two priorities in mind, we are always looking at every initiative through that lens. City of Highland Park is a home rule unit of government. And so as it pertains to certain aspects, we are not tax capped. So policy is set by the mayor and city council. We're not limited as a non-home rule unit is as it pertains to tax caps. And then there's other provisions for home rule units of government, but as it pertains to kind of public projects and paying for them, just that's an important notation. We are also very proud to be a AAA bonded community. And so what does that mean? So one, that is a testament to the city's fiscal stability, sound financial planning, sound policy that is set by the mayor and city council. It's credit for the fiscal management that our staff conducts. And what that means for debt issues is we also get lower borrowing rates. And so that's important, again, just to maintain that AAA bond rating as we move forward in our day-to-day. Use of reserves, we have a policy on the use of reserves. We're gonna just share components of that policy later in this presentation. But pursuant to council policy, we have been drawing down our reserves, and how we quantify or how we describe it is very strategic and thoughtful. So every year we are drawing down our reserves pursuant to our policy for specific projects in accordance with our policy. Again, to get to the point of maintaining minimum fund balance, but again, using those reserves so we're not dependent on property taxes or other areas. We do have a 10-year capital plan. We established that several years ago because we were working off of a 5-year plan, and what was happening when we were doing long-range planning is we were taking projects and we were saying, well, we're just gonna do them sometime in the future. And so they were just kind of like thrown into this unknown abyss. And so we put together a 10-year plan and we balanced that plan. And so as it pertains to the Public Service Center and Fire Station project, so in 25 and 26, we had contemplated doing plans for the Public Service Center Fire Station project. So hiring architect, engineering firms, construction management firms, doing the needs assessment, getting a cost estimate, and then construction was tentatively planned in 27. We have $17.5 million in 27 right now for this project, and that number was developed based on the balanced budget over that time period. And so at the time when we did that, you know, we had shared, again, we don't know how much this project is gonna cost. We're gonna do the needs assessment, and we'll approach an increased budget amount at that time during the planning process, which is right now. So again, we started in 25. Right now we're having those important policy conversations as we take a look at funding, paying for this important public facility projects. And then Director Bannon is gonna talk about some of the capital projects, but just very briefly, as we take a look at our capital projects, again, we have a 10-year plan, but every year we are doing budget development and budget planning and reviewing our capital projects. We are prioritizing capital projects, and we have just, you know, very simply a priority level. And so we will look at projects based on public safety needs. We look at projects, if we have grant funding that we have obtained, then that kind of helps prioritize when we do that project, because we've got now some additional revenue that's not ours to help pay for that. We'll also prioritize based on utility impacts. So if we know that a street needs to be resurfaced and we know that we need to upsize, for example, the water main, well, we'll take a look at a totality of that infrastructure investment rather than just resurfacing a street and then coming back 3 years later and then doing the utility work underneath. And so looking at those cost efficiencies and overall project efficiencies as we move forward. And then we will talk about the Public Service Center and Fire Station project. Yes, ma'am.
I think I may have been writing something, but I don't remember hearing you talk about the pension obligations between the AAA and the use of reserves.
Yes, thank you. I did bypass that. So our pension obligations, Christy is going to go through our pension obligations, but one thing that's very important to note as part of kind of our assumptions is several years ago, the mayor and city council established a policy where we were funding, we were almost kind of getting caught up on funding of our public safety pensions and paying a consistent amount each year to get us to that statutory requirement of being 90% funded by 2040. And what we were doing is getting ourselves on a plan, one, to save money, because the plan that we were on, we were going to experience eventually significant spikes in our pension obligations in the latter years when the state was telling us you had to be fully funded. And so we have now consistently made pension payments to our public safety pensions in the amount of $9.5 million. We've got a graph that we're going to show you there. And so again, it's being fiscally responsible, making sure that we're paying our obligations and putting us on a consistent path towards fully funded, rather than kind of kicking it down the road and experiencing higher spikes later on.
And that's been a critical part of our ability to maintain our AAA bond rating.
Yes, thank you. Okay. All right, with that, I'll turn over to Director Bannon, who will walk us through the next part of the presentation.
Thank you, Keita. Okay, so we have a variety of projects planned for 2026, and these are just some highlights. I just want to point out the lead service line Phase 1, Phase 2. Phase 2 is still coming together. We estimate approximately $16 million, but that is funded by IEPA loan. So that is more so, there are some upfront costs, but basically it'd be a pass-through, so we pay the contractor when the IEPA pays us. But once those projects are complete, then we will have to start paying back those funds at 0% interest. The Sheridan Road Sidewalk project is scheduled for this year for an April letting, so we hope to have that project up and running very soon here. We have our resurfacing program that we're doing $3 million this year. Sheridan Road Utility Project Edgecliff to the north end is on the council agenda tonight for approval, and a variety of other improvements planned for 2026. We also have in our 10-year several projects that are not currently funded. So this is just some highlights of our 10-year that right now are priority twos, which means that in our spreadsheet that they are not currently funded. I know the Ped Bridge is number 1 on there, so we have the $2 million in grant funding, ITEP. That is scheduled, it's November letting for that one, so, but because we have to let it in November, we need, the design engineers do need to know now to stay on schedule either for a full rebuild or a rehab. So if we choose the rehab option, then there's a different permitting process we have to go through, so it still may be a project that goes a year or two down the road on that side of things. So it depends on which lane we pick here, but we're getting down to the point where we have to pick a
Choose
lane.
which way.
Yes.
And the rehab is 2.4 million, 2.3 million?
It is, yeah, approximately, slide, 2.4, 2.4.
So versus 10.3 for a complete redo.
Yes, yeah, and then, I know we have some of the pluses and minuses of that. Of course, 2.5 million, much more reasonable, but also not ADA compliant, and some other challenges.
Yep.
Yeah. And then just, we have some infrastructure work in the Ravinia Business District that we were looking at, water mains and some utility improvements to go along with some TIF improvements. That's currently not funded. I know we've talked about Waverly. Waverly needs a water main. There's 2 bridges on Waverly, so that's an expensive project to get that done, but it's definitely needed. Our annual resurfacing program, I know that a couple of years ago at the city council, we were calling it our PCN, our pavement condition number. We wanted to get it to 70 or above, and we estimated $5 million a year in resurfacing for 5 years to get us to that point. This year we're doing 3. And that's just based on our budget and maintaining our budget targets. So again, Ravinia East Train Station lot, there's a generator replacement at the North Reservoir that we visited today, or near that area that needs to be replaced. So again, projects that we are eyeing, and of course, continuing to apply for grant funding to see if we can get some of these done. As we look beyond 27 and 28 into the 10-year, again, there's a ton of projects, but just handpicking some of these, we talked about the intake pipe at about $18 million. That we received a couple grants, Congressman Schneider, so 1.2 million and another one for about $1 million, which is fantastic. But it's $18 million.
It's not 18 million.
$18 million project. So we were using some of that to see if we can do design and get that ready to go, so that in the event we can fund it or get additional funding, we can move forward with that type of project.
And that's to address the water intake for the water plant, where we provide water to 6 municipalities, including our own, and have seen at time to time freezing over and need to go further into the lane.
That's correct, Mayor. So for all the water we pump, about half of it is here in Highland Park, the half is other to our outside other municipality. So we have some resurfacing projects that we have submitted for. They're in the budget that we're looking for funding with Lake County on. That's that lab project there for Central, into our city here. That's an important one. Summit Avenue as well. And then we have some facility types of projects like the Port Clinton expansion joint that's estimated 1.5. So really just showing some of the projects that as we make sometimes tough decisions in our 10-year process, our 10-year capital, these are some of the projects that are not going.
So just to reiterate, these are not in the budget. And they're also not prioritized, they're just shown in descending order of cost.
Yes, yeah, and I should point out that a lot of these, per fund, a lot of these are budgeted across multiple funds. So for example, the Sheridan Road Edge Cliff project that's on for tonight, that's a water main project, it's a sewer project, it's a resurfacing, so that hits all those different accounts. So to section them off by account is tough because they cross a lot of these. Some of these are TIF funded projects, but along with some others. So
Right.
the Richfield Alley on the funded projects is something that would be also TIF funding, plus some general fund and some sewer and stuff like that. So.
Right.
And then our grants, this does not include the 1.2 that we received for the water, for the intake pipe, but we're approximately $50 million over the last about 10 years.
Great job.
Okay, so we have a core project team that has been working on the Public Service Center Fire Station project. We put together this team early last year. That team was responsible for putting together an RFP and a competitive selection of an architect and engineering firm. I want to recognize Andy Dogan, who represents Williams Architects. So we've been working closely with Williams and also Gawalt Hamilton as we've been doing some needs assessment as it pertains to this project. And then on for consideration this evening is a recommendation to hire Camosi Construction to serve as the construction manager. And we've been keeping the mayor and council apprised of we went through an RFQ process, an RFP process, interviews, and then came to the recommended selection this evening. So very briefly, the two project sites that we're talking about are off of Half Day Road, total about 8.3 acres. These buildings are a little bit younger than I am, and you can see gray hair, I do color it. So old buildings with very little renovation. And when we take a look at the needs of our department, hopefully everyone will agree there is significant needs in terms of renovation or redevelopment of these two important projects. There was a renovation to the Public Service Center in 2000. That was actually to relocate Community Development Department into that building. They were located off-site at some office space in the community, and so they relocated to that building for more synergy, and then didn't have those lease payments. So as the council knows, this area is surrounded by either floodplain or floodway, and so this is a good illustration just to show the challenges with these two sites. So Gawalt Hamilton has been working closely with us as we've done some preliminary planning of where can we build if we need to expand, and what does that mean for compensatory storage. And so we do have an agreement with the Park District of Highland Park, who, if you recall, we spent many months negotiating those agreements with them. So there's a provision in our agreement with them that does provide for the ability to have stormwater management on that facility. And it's to provide for stormwater relief for the area. And so certainly we have some stormwater needs as part of this project that we have, and then what our preliminary recommendation would be is to increase that capacity by about 10%, again to provide some level of relief in light of the floodplain and floodways in this area. So this slide should look familiar. We present it during the budget process each year. Want to just share that in terms of overall total city expenditures of $142 million. Our largest goes towards personnel. So that makes sense. We are a customer service organization, and so over 270 employees, 36% of our expenditures goes towards our people in the work that they do to serve the public. We are a public service organization. We also, I think, have the right balance of how much we contract out versus the staff that we have in-house. And so we contract out where we have the greatest needs to do so. That does provide us, it allows us to be fiscally responsible because we're not paying, pension obligations and insurance and all those costs. It also saves on staff space because we don't have those additional personnel that are taking up our office spaces as well. And then we use those contract services during peak periods. The other important element that you'll see is Public Works is our largest operating department. So they make up 43% of our expenditures. We group fire and police together under public safety. They make up the second most component of our expenditures. But you're going to see in a moment that Public Works is certainly a public safety department as well. This is a department that works 24 hours a day, if needed, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so we don't have a slide for fire because when we say public safety, people generally think police and fire, and certainly that makes sense, and we're grateful to those first responders. But public work, hopefully everyone brushed their teeth this morning, used water. That's Public Works, providing water to your home so we could do everything that we need to get ready in the morning. And again, they are providing response during all weather conditions all year. So when we take a look at project needs, this is just a snapshot of why this public facility project is being recommended for redevelopment, renovation of that property. I'm not going to go through this in great detail, but I just want to share a couple of important points. So one, we are maximizing our spaces to the greatest extent possible. You saw during the tour, for example, we are eliminating a lot of our paper and putting everything on Laserfiche. That's creating an efficiency for the public, so it's easy access to public records. It's also creating a lot of efficiency for our staff as well. So that opens up some areas where we could relocate some personnel in some of those traditional storage areas. We also have challenges, for example, where we have the majority of our equipment just stored outside. And so if there is a snow event, for example, our staff are coming in and they're cleaning off the trucks so they can then serve the public, thereafter. And so that is creating a delay that other municipalities that have their equipment stored in-house are not experiencing because they're able to come in and just immediately serve the community. It's very similar that if they're responding in the middle of the night to a water main break or a sewer break, the time is of the essence for us to get out and serve the public. And so we do have some challenges in that regard just because of the limitations that we have with these buildings. And then you can see the other areas there. So very important, I know that when we look at the Public Service Center and even the fire station, and the public may be like, I've never been in that building. And that's common. We have a lot of people that come to City Hall and they say, I've been a resident for 30 years, I've never been in City Hall. But the city is working every single day for the public. And that's an important element in terms of the service that we're providing to the public, particularly out of the public safety departments that we're talking about this evening. So we worked with the Williams team to do a needs assessment for our 3 departments. And so you can see on this chart, we've got the number of staff in all the departments, 29. The fire station houses anywhere between 4 to 6 personnel, and Public Works is 90. Some of the personnel are in the office all day long. Some are field employees where they come in, they have to do paperwork, check on things, and then they're out in the field. But that's the total number of personnel that we have. Our existing square footage, you can see reflected in the 3rd column there. And then the first thing that we did is we worked with each department to identify the needs assessment. So what employees do we have? How are employees working? How many times do they meet with the public or different contractors or developers that come in? And so what are those meeting spaces? How does everything work in terms of break rooms, for example, number of restrooms that we have? And then we got to the original proposed square footage. I would say that original proposed square footage is based on needs. We're not really looking at, I'd like a TV room in my office or something like that. So this is really based on needs of the departments. But then what we did, that final proposed square footage, is we looked at, okay, where can we shave down to just make sure that we've got the absolute core needs that we have for each of the departments. Where can we share space with other areas? And that got us to that final square footage. So a couple things that you can see, the fire station obviously is a significant jump. The majority of that is in the Bay Area. Right now, we just don't have adequate space to store the equipment that we need for the fire department to respond to the community. And then we also provide service to Highwood and Fort Sheridan as well as the mutual aid that we provide. Very similar public works, you can see the square footages as we take a look at the maintenance garage. Right now, we've got employees working on equipment where there's other trucks driving all around them. That creates an unsafe condition, and it's not ideal in a public works garage in that environment. Vehicle storage is important, and we talk about garage space, but that also has a cost to it, because when we are storing equipment in the Midwest inclement weather, we are looking at significant degradation of the vehicles and equipment. It's reducing the overall life of that equipment. And so that's an important element as we take a look at trying to have those vehicles protected from the weather elements. One, so we can respond to the public as expeditiously as possible. Two, to save costs for overall life of the equipment. And then you can see the office and shop space there as well. All right, turn it over to Christy for financial considerations.
Thank you, Anita. Hi, Mayor and City Council. Okay, we're gonna go over some financial considerations, and feel free to stop me and ask any questions, or we can wait till the end.
Great, thank you.
Okay, first, debt policy. So the city presently does not have a statutory limit on the amount of debt that we can issue, since we are, as Gate had said, a home rule unit of government. If the city were to have such a limitation, our ability to issue debt could not exceed 8.625 of our city's EAV, or equalized assessed value. And then below, these were the numbers in the 2026 budget, which is 2025 fiscal year, that our net debt expected is 60.4 million, which is only a 2.13% ratio, versus if we were to ever have a limit, it would be at 8%.
And so that's current borrowing, that's not
current.
additional, okay,
Not- yeah,
thank you.
That's not future.
Okay,
The city does limit long-term debt to capital improvements, which are for assets with an estimated life expectancy of at least 10 years that can't be financed from current resources or revenues. The maturity date for recent debt that we have issued will not exceed the reasonably expected useful life of the capital improvements that are financed. For example, we won't finance capital for 30 years if it's only going to last 10. And then the city does not use long-term debt for operating revenues or operating programs. Okay, uses of reserves. So this budgetary goal policy has been in place. I went back to at least 2012, and the reserves are established to one, possibly provide settlement of any pending negotiations, provide temporary funding for unforeseen needs of an emergency or non-reoccurring in nature, which we tend to express as excess funds can be used for planned capital improvement projects. And then the third is to permit budget adjustments in the event of unanticipated revenue shortfalls. And lastly, use of reserves can be used for meeting unexpected small increases in our delivery to our cost to deliver services. This is an illustration of the historic and future estimated fund balance for the general fund. As we can see, in 2023, the fund balance was about 124% of the minimum fund balance target. The minimum fund balance target established for the general fund is it's a percentage of operating expenditures is 35%. So then we can see in 2024, those are actuals, our fund balance, through strategic drawdowns for specific projects in those years is 95.5%. We are in the middle of our 2025 fiscal audit, so we don't have actuals yet for 25. At the May workshop, we will have actuals, and the 25 fund balance estimate is estimated at 72%. And then for the budget and our 5-year plan for the general fund, you can see that we are getting closer to the minimum fund balance target of 35%. So use of reserves is getting minimized.
So between 24 and 26, we've dropped 40%, or we are estimating to drop 40%. And I thought we used 10% as sort of like a standard, just to make sure that the credit agencies weren't concerned that we were going too deeply into our reserve. Have we had any kind of feedback from them?
Yes, well, Moody's won't specifically give feedback on that, but our municipal advisor did say they're not specific to a 10% fund balance drawdown. It's more of what is the purpose for
Okay.
the drawdown?
So back to
And
the
is
4
it-
reasons.
Right,
and-
like, is
okay.
it strategic, or are we just drawing down because we
Just
need
'cause
the,
you have- yeah.
we need the funding for
I'm so happy to
unplanned
hear you
things.
say that. So as long as we're sticking to those 4 reasons and we have a cogent plan, we shouldn't be as concerned. Okay, that's
Correct.
important.
I have a question. So wait, the 10% was always the benchmark.
The 10% was
For
the
the
benchmark,
AAA.
but we've been using it for capital improvements, like we're sticking
So
to
we're in
our
those 4,
policy.
so we're okay.
So we're
Even if we
okay.
draw down more than the 10%.
But that explains why the runway for drawing down reserves is suddenly much shorter, because it
That's
was
why-
like
Yeah, at 10%.
instead of 2 years for,
Great.
for
Thank you
40%.
for calling that out, because I was like, wait.
How did we
There's a
suddenly get to
limit.
that?
Yeah,
Right,
Right.
I think the 10% always was my benchmark of the AAA rating.
right.
But you're saying if it's within one of those 4 buckets, we're okay.
Well,
Yeah,
and if we've got a
And the
clear,
rating agencies look at more than just maybe this 10%, fund balance
They wanna hear
drawdown that
what we're
was
using it
given in
for.
the past.
Right.
They look at a lot of other factors, and it's mainly if we can substantiate why we're doing it.
right.
Well,
And the
They'll be
key
okay.
is you're using it for one of those 4 purposes, not for operating expenses.
Great.
You want to show that your operating budget is balanced,
Yes.
and then this is separate and apart from operations.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
So getting into the public safety contribution scenarios a little bit, this was presented as.
This is public safety pension contribution,
Yes,
right?
which is police and fire pension.
Right, but the word pension isn't up there, so that's
Oh,
why I
sorry.
want to be clear that it's for the pension fund
pensions, yes,
contributions. Thank you.
yes. This was presented at the 2025 workshop. We are in draft form for having final numbers at the spring workshop in
Right,
May for
right.
26. But that being said, this shows a trajectory of the where the city is headed right now per the policy that mayor and city council have had us on since 2022. And the light blue is where we have strategically contributed $9.5 million to police and fire pensions since 2023. And it's also in the 2026 budget to do $9.5 million. If we were to adjust that at all, and on my next slide, there is a statutory minimum that the city has to contribute per the state of Illinois to the pensions, so those numbers will be on the next slide. If we were to stray from the $9.5 million planned contributions, we would see as the years get closer to 2040 in the dark blue or the dark gray that the spike in the amount of money the city would need to contribute to fund those pensions skyrockets. It could be almost $16 million by 2040.
So that would
In this
detrimentally
scenario.
impact our ability to invest in infrastructure and, yeah, go ahead.
And I'll go home.
So pension funds with the city, for police and fire pension obligations, we fund those mainly through property tax, state income tax, which is local government distributed fund, and a little bit of personal property replacement, which we refer to as PPRT revenue. So this is going back to 2023 where we started the $9.5 million consistently. City contributions, that $9.5 million through the 26 budget and 27 estimate if we go that route. There is, in the actuary report, there's a determined contribution that the actuary provides for the city to be 100% funded by 2040. And of course, the pension boards want us to aim for that. So up through 2026, the city is contributing more than the actuary determined contribution for that 100% by 2040. And then the last column is the statutory minimum by the state to be 90% funded by 2040, and those are the minimum amount dollars that we would have had to contribute. Now, 2027 budget is based off the 25 actuary report, which is in draft form right now. But right now, the numbers look as though it would be a $9.9 million city contribution if we went by what the actuary determined, and about $8 million for the statutory minimum.
Do you have the current funding numbers?
Percentages?
Is it 55 for police and 62 for fire, or are we a little?
I don't have them written down, but I think we're about 50, I think you're right. And I can-
55
I
for
can look
police
those up.
and 62 for fire. And we've benefited over the last couple of years from the market doing as well as it's been doing. That's not a guarantee, given what's going on in the world and how things are moving going forward. And I think it's also important to look at how we compare to our peer communities, which for the most part are in the 80s and 90s. So this has been a game of catch-up that we've been playing for as long as I've been mayor. And I think it's something that the rating agencies also look at to see how we are doing in terms of meeting this need. So it does have an impact on our AAA bond rating. It also sends an important message to our personnel that we value them and their security of their future retirement. One last piece, you see state income tax, LGDF. I don't know if you've been hearing what I've been reporting out from the different councils of governments that we are participating in, but the current state budget, the governor has again cut back on LGDF. So this was originally supposed to be a 10% amount that we receive from the income generated by our residents. Since 2011, they've been taking little slices. They increased it somewhat over the last few years, and we made that decision as a group to have that delta definitely go towards trying to bring up our pension funds. But once again, giving us a little bit of a challenge, they're now cutting back on the portion that we should be getting. So those funds are less available basically to fill the hole that we've been trying to fill.
Yeah, so right now, the LGDF, statewide, the share for municipalities is 6.47, and in the state budget, it's proposed at 6.28%.
From the 10.
From the 10.
Well, yeah, it hasn't been 10
It hasn't been
since
10 for a while,
2011. Yeah.
since 2011. And
Yeah.
we've been fighting for it nonstop. And they're like, oh, wow.
And it's been 6.47 for a while, but now,
Now they're cutting back.
Yes.
So even fewer dollars that should be ours are available to us to put
Yeah.
towards our pension fund obligations. And so where do you make up that difference? Property taxes or other revenue sources? The fake stuff.
okay. Now on to debt scenarios. We looked at a couple different options, proposing that if we were to issue $40 million of debt. We looked at different bond terms, if we issued 15 years, 20 years, or 30 years. Now, the last several bonds that the city has issued have either been 15 or 20 years, just for reference. So As discussed earlier, if the shorter the bond term, the higher property tax increase we would need in order to be above fund balance target for roughly the next 9 years. We're looking at 11% for 15 years, 10% for 20-year bond issue payback, and at 30-year term, 9%.
Excuse me, but this is from the current 8% to go
Yes,
to 9.
from
Right.
the
It's
current
not
8%.
It's not an
in addition.
additional
I just
9%.
Correct.
wanna already-
This
It's
is
an
all
increase
in.
2%, 3%.
This is all
I think
in,
it's
yes.
also important to note that the last kind of monster debt that we issued was for the water treatment plant renovation, which was $35 million, and that is a 30-year debt,
It is.
because it was big, and it was, when was that, like 20?
Well, the project was big. We issued debt through like 3 different times. I
2012.
think it was 10 million, 10 million, and 5 million.
Right, so it was a big chunk, and it was a
Yes.
while ago. So
Yeah.
think about what we're looking at now compared to that. We, again, went with the 30-year, again, to diminish the annual
Yes.
hit
Yeah.
to the property
But,
taxes.
and just for the water plant, that is paid out of the water fund.
Right.
So that's kind of a self-sustaining
Right.
fund.
We share that cost of debt service
Yes.
to some extent, but some of it is still on the property taxes, isn't it? 'Cause it's
Not
debt
for the
ser-
water plant.
Not for the water, it's all enterprise, okay.
Yep. All enterprise. So that's what I have, I think.
That's what Christie
I'm
has.
like, and then
So-
the last column is the average
Estimated
impact
impact.
of a $500,000.
Sure.
Yep.
Quick question, when you just showed us the pension stuff, you did that to make sure everybody's aware of what we've been doing. You didn't do that like to present that perhaps we should reconsider what we're contributing, right?
No, but it also.
yet.
Not yet,
At
but
the spring
that'll,
workshop, that'll be a.
when we do our
policy
major
decision.
budget workshop in a few
Yeah.
months. But I think it's important to note, as we've talked about in the past, we did do an increase in salary. And that increase in salary now has to be reflected as we look at our pensions, because they're mirroring the increases.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can just go, well, we've got this covered, now we're looking at an increased liability that needs to be addressed as well.
Yes.
And that
And
wage, and that wage adjustment for public safety was really for parity. I mean,
Right,
it wasn't.
right.
But still, for
Right.
transparency, we may have to adjust, but that's something we're gonna do at the workshop. We're not talking about doing that.
Right, but my whole concern was, it's all, in essence, an obligation. And how do you meet that obligation without overburdening the residents? And so how do you move forward in a planful way with a project of this magnitude when you have other things that need to also be addressed? Pensions are sort of the driver, and then from there, we see what we have that's available to continue to move on other projects.
So consistent with what we do every year in preparation for our budget and planning workshop in the spring, and this year again, it's gonna be on May 18th. So we'll present a financial report at that meeting and get feedback from the council on our policies, on financial considerations, just making sure that we are reflecting the policy direction of the mayor and city council. So we'll talk about property tax, we'll certainly talk about pension. One thing that we just want to make sure the council is aware as we take a look at just different revenue stream options, we do have the ability as a home rule unit to increase our sales tax rate in quarter increments. And so just for reference, for example, if we go, if we increase it 0.5%, and some communities, for example, when they're looking at capital projects, they may say, we're gonna increase it 0.5% for 5 years, for example, and just put a sunset, so everybody knows it's not, forever. And so, so 0.5% estimated for the city is about $2 million in revenue. And so. Annually, each year, right, so again, over 5 years, additional, that would be 10 years of additional revenue that could be dedicated towards a project. The other important things, we're certainly sensitive to any kind of taxes on our residents. We use the Placer AI data to take a look at, on the Route 481 corridor, for example, where the majority of our sales tax revenue is coming from because of car sales. We don't know exactly sales, but we can tell based on zip codes, there's more than 70% of people outside Highland Park that are frequenting that corridor. So we can break down by
So
zip code.
sharing that
where-
burden outside of,
Correct,
Just
right.
my residents.
And we can break down by community so you see exactly where people are coming from, but that's just a kind of a good talking point as we look at being sensitive to the impact on our residents. And then consistent with, every
Even
other.
just one point, that would not, the way we've drafted the rebate agreements for several of these deals, just, that would not be part of what we would rebate.
okay, good to know.
Good point.
No,
We'd get 100% of the,
Yeah.
of
Whatever
our
the
portion.
increase is.
Okay.
Quick question, in terms of increasing sales tax, how does that affect what we get back through the LGDF?
Nothing.
LGDF is income
It's
tax.
income tax.
State
So based
income.
on your
State
income that you generate as a community, it's a percentage of the total
Okay.
income.
Good question.
Sales.
And so consistent with past years, we go through our annual fee resolution, so we want to make sure that we're benchmarked compared to other units, that things are fair, because again, we do a great job of diversifying our revenue, and the majority of our revenue comes from charges for services. People are getting a service and paying for it, so we're reducing the impact of the property tax. And we have seen the effect of that, because as the city of Highland Park, our property tax rate is the lowest among the North Shore. So that's another important talking point. And then, so this slide should look familiar. So we're asking your policy feedback on these three topics, any feedback that you want to give us. Most critical is getting that first bullet point, some feedback. And then just want to, this slide should look familiar because on February 9th, I think it was the committee of the whole, we presented the Route 41 bridge consideration. So again, just as a reminder, in terms of cost, 2.4 is rehab versus approximately 10.3 is reconstruction. The $2 million of ITEP funds cannot be used for rehab. We've tried, but unfortunately that can't be. So the rehab is 100% of city costs, that if we go that route. When we take a look at just overall, service life, 25 years compared to 75. The other important element is the existing bridge. The pathway is 6 feet wide. It's 3 feet in either direction. And so it's not ADA compliant, it's not bicycle friendly. The new path would be 14 feet. And so that would be greater. It's also obviously a bigger project, so right-of-way acquisition and everything else.
But the money for this would be on top of what we're also trying to figure out for Public Works and the fire station.
I looked up the numbers for what the pensions are funded at right now.
Uh-huh.
Police is at 55% and fire's at 62%.
Okay.
And that's as of the 24 actuary report.
Good
I
memory
read your
there.
reports every month.
Yeah.
Andres and then Tony.
Yeah, can you define not bike friendly? Can you define not?
Can you
bike
define
friendly?
not bike
How is
friendly?
it not bike friendly?
The current bridge, because of the width, it's recommended you walk the bikes across because it's not safe to ride.
But even with the rehab?
The rehab version would be 10 feet, and so we would create a more bike-friendly environment.
So-
The brand new bridge would be 14 if we did brand new. 14.
Right, but
It
there
says
says,
not bike
it says
friendly.
not bike friendly.
Right.
I mean, you're saying it's gonna be a little more bike friendly.
Well,
The
You shouldn't
rehab,
ride
you're-
across.
you can
Yeah.
walk your bike across, and you're saying for the reconstruction, you can ride your bike across.
usually I speak loud enough where it doesn't matter, but, yeah, I mean, I think 10 feet is as wide as we can go on the rehab version of this. It'll be much improved over the 6 feet that's currently there.
But why is it not bike
Yeah,
friendly?
yeah.
Why
it's
is it not
yeah.
bike friendly at 10 feet?
I mean, I ride it right now at
If you,
6.
if
I
you
feel like
fall
my life
over,
is
you're
in
still
peril.
within the 10 feet.
I think for safety purposes, we don't want to say that
I
it
think I was
is
gonna
when there
say,
isn't
people-
sufficient width if people are walking with their
And
families
it
and
won't be drained in the
kids.
middle, right?
We would remove the drain in the middle. So
You're
if you think
gonna-
a typical sidewalk square is 5 feet, so if you said a 5 foot width, 5 foot width, you have 2 lanes of traffic there. Mixed use paths are usually at least 8 feet. And
I
then
was
you
gonna
have-
say, the new one that was put in on Clavy, I thought was 8 feet.
Yeah, 8 foot mixed use paths.
All right, so that seems to be okay for ground level.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
Andres?
Yeah,
And then Tony?
I mean, I'm not comfortable calling it not bike friendly. I mean, if we're spending $2.5 million on rehab,
It's,
and then-
maybe it's bike okay.
or not bike app, I don't know.
Right.
I
We
will
can- yeah,
mention it.
exactly.
Not
I
bike's
mention it.
fabulous, but bike okay, or
Well, think
whatever.
about it, right? $2.5 million, but
And
it's
you
not
can't
bike
bike.
friendly.
Yeah, Doesn't make
Why-
sense.
Take it out, take
I-
it
yeah.
out.
Okay, we can,
Well, I mean, there's a reason why that's there. So, I mean, if we're not going to, as the city manager said, you can't call it a bike-friendly if it's not meeting the current standards, which would be 14-foot bridge deck. Be a wider environment, someone could ride a bike while someone's pushing a stroller next to it. If you're in a situation where you have to get off your bike
Have a
or move out of
conflict.
the way while somebody's coming across, so that creates a not bike-friendly environment. Because
But even
we're-
on your 8-footer at ground level, you don't have that width, so I'm not quite sure.
You're just
I
not
don't know, I
trapped, you're not
think we're-
trapped in between these two things. of
I see what you're
routes
saying, you
going
can go
on.
underground.
So-
Tony and then Barissa.
I will just say the statement not bicycle friendly appears to be an industry term.
Is that a term of art?
And that's why you've included it in the slide. I think the reality is that you can ride a bicycle on the bridge. My question is, when you say the reconstruction is approximately $10.3 million, we get a $2 million federal grant, and there's an additional $100,000 to $500,000 for lighting and aesthetics. First of all, are you saying there's an additional $100,000 to $500,000 cost on top of the 10.3?
So now it's 10.8 potentially?
Potentially. It will depend on what we decide we want it to look like. If we said, okay, we're gonna go for the full reconstruction of the bridge, we have a bunch of aesthetic elements that we can incorporate that would make it.
I see what you're
City
saying.
of Highland Park with our logo,
Yes.
you know, is a nice kind of element, it would be aesthetic. Lighting, you don't have to have lighting.
I'll
but
paint you a poster. Go ahead.
The-
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, but the $2 million federal ITEP fund grant, does that bring the approximate cost down to about $8.3 million for the city?
That is correct.
Okay.
Um,
Doesn't really change my mind in terms of where we're going, but just want to be
For
clear.
clarity,
on what
sure.
things really
And
cost.
my question is just the not ADA compliant part of it, versus ADA. I mean, obviously, I'm in favor of the 2.4 rehabilitation, but I just wanted to know why it's not ADA compliant.
Because the current grades
Okay.
of the current bridge, those would remain, and so those would stay
Too steep.
too steep for current
Okay.
standards. If you, we don't have a picture of the full bridge, the proposed bridge, but yes, you can see the big blind, and it kind of really stretches out, and that's because they can slowly make that grade to meet the ADA compliant. This one will not have that, it'll be the same grade.
Okay. Yumi and then Andres.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yumi and then Annette and then Andres. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
Have a seat.
14 feet is really too wide. Yeah, it's
That's a big
really
bridge.
wide. And my question is, could rehabilitation include redesigning the rail to, you know, or are you just replacing the
The fencing that was there.
con-
or the
Well, I'm
rail?
looking, isn't this, I'm trying to remember, because I don't use it often, but I have family members who do.
Right.
You know, could there be subtle design changes made to it to make the bridge, you know, sort of a little,
I mean, it would be our project, so we could
Yeah.
add whatever.
It just costs
It's
money.
just gonna cost, yeah.
Very-
We just can't change the
Structure.
width, the slope, that
right,
all.
right.
The slope would remain, the way that the center drain, if you're familiar with the center drain that's there now, I apologize, the previous presentation, all the pictures and everything, but the center drain would be gone, we would remove that deck, the parapet or the walls would be removed, there'd be a new, we would widen it, 10
Okay.
feet as wide as we can go on those existing pillars, because that's what we're building on.
So you could
So we would,
Yeah.
replace,
we
you
would,
will be replacing those
Yes.
The
sites.
railing.
yes.
So in theory, it actually could be less expensive to do, possibly, what I'm thinking, but it's just, it will be part of the redesign.
The rehab.
Yeah, rehab,
Yep.
rehab.
Okay.
And I do want to also say that I have a sort of extended family member, my sister-in-law's mother, who lives in view of the bridge, who says that she sees people using it all day long. It's interesting because I originally a little bit hoped, you know, that maybe we, you know, rebuild it, but I think, you know, 14 feet is just huge and unnecessary. 10 feet seems fine to me.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, it's a good sized bridge. That's all I wanted, and just,
Thank
that
you.
one little piece of if you're.
The railing.
The railing, I
Okay.
think we could do a nicer job.
Right, Annette, and then Andres, and then we'll wrap.
So, the only thing I wanted to bring up, I was in favor of the 2.4 all along. I don't like the fact, obviously, it won't be ADA compliant, but this is just huge for us, and I really feel it has to be done, and the sooner the better. So my question was, one of the things that came up, and I'm really glad John walked in right now, was we were speaking about the funding and the way the money would work. And over time, because it was gonna have a 75-year life versus at one point we said 20 years, now we're up to 25. It was actually, someone said the word cheaper when we were talking about it. Now to me, because I'm, you know, I see 2.4 and I see 10.8, because that's really what we're talking about in terms of concrete terms. How is this cheaper, is my point. Not only in whole numbers of 2.4, but because of last time's discussion, is this cheaper? Or were the arguments that were made last time?
So there's the amortization and the depreciation that gets included in that calculus. But I think the important piece is how we began this whole conversation. And that is, what are the externalities that are impacting the economy currently? What are the absolutely critical obligations that we have in terms of pension fund liabilities? What did we just look at? What are we trying to achieve in terms of what's needed at the fire station and at the Public Works building? And how much of a burden are you going to place on your citizenry? You
So
could
bottom line
argue
is
all,
we don't have the money.
it's kind of like stereo speakers, right? There's always gonna be a better stereo speaker, and it might last you longer and the sound will be better, but can you afford them right now? Or is this gonna get you what you're trying to achieve, and maybe down the road, there's a better answer to it? I just feel like at the moment, I see you, at the moment, I'm just so concerned about overburdening our residents with a property tax increase that we already know we need to do for the pension funds. We already saw what we need to do for the fire department and for the public works department. How much more do you want to layer on and increase the cost to the people of
I
Hyde
just
Park?
wanted to understand the comments that were made last time,
Yeah.
because it's just too much money, period. The other thing, I really want to commend our city manager, because I pushed very hard about the county, and the county being a part of this, and
Right.
taking the $2 million that they really don't know what they're gonna do with it,
Right.
and bring it over to this project.
And they were just like,
And they said, no,
Nope,
thank you, we're not
we're
doing
not
anything
interested.
new.
Like, we're just
So-
gonna throw a whole new bike lane down Lake Cook Road,
That
narrow
nobody's-
Lake Cook Road,
right.
and we can't give you any money for the bridge. Yeah, that
So
was.
I just wanna
good-
say
good
thank
effort,
you to
though.
staff for doing that, but I
Uh-huh.
also, I would never give up on any funding source.
Yeah.
And so if there's any way we can still be in touch with our compatriots over there, I think
Yeah.
we should continue to do that.
You had a comment, or did you already make your comment? Okay, Andres?
Yeah, I want to come
And
back
then
to
Yumi,
the,
and then we're gonna wrap up.
yeah, the not ADA compliant, you know, so from an inclusion perspective, when you hit a dilemma like this, right, that's not a good bullet either, not
No,
ADA compliant.
not at all.
So, but we recognize that we have this huge difference, and we gotta look at the multiple things. So that, I think, makes us obligated to then say, okay, the bridge is not ADA compliant, but we still have to be inclusive to help people with some form of disabilities or whatever, to get across 41 on a regular basis. So we should not just say, well, you know, we couldn't afford it. We're like, well, if they can't use the bridge for these.
How else can we?
How else can we get them over there? And a conversation that we had, I had with the mayor is, you know, now especially with the CCHI building over there, and this Keshet on the other side,
Yeah.
well, they can't, you know, there's several that ride bikes, but if we can't make it ADA compliant there, how can we then look at an alternative, like increasing the number of shuttle access?
Right,
So-
using our shuttle
So we provide an
route and-
alternative.
Right.
That's an accommodation,
I'm
right?
so glad you brought that up.
So
Absolutely.
and that should be part of the conversation.
I agree, absolutely. Yumi?
Or
and then-
commitment to that.
My question is, it's presented as a either or here. If if you were to rebuild the bridge, and I still at this point favor the $2.5 million version, given all the expenses we have. But if you were, to Councilmember Littauer's point about the 75 years of service life, if you were rebuild it, but it is, a narrower, less expensive bridge, we wouldn't, is there a way to rebuild it for
Last?
less, where, I mean, we're tied to the 14 feet because I assume it's a bit like IDOT where you either, conform to our
Our
widths
warrants and, yeah.
or you don't get the money. But, so that's my question.
I don't know that you can build something new that's not ADA compliant.
Right.
You can rehab.
Oh,
it.
that's true.
So is the entire,
That is true. We
Right.
can't, yeah. Okay.
I want us to kind of get to a decision point, because we got to wrap up and grab dinner and then have our meeting at 8 o'clock. Are people comfortable doing the 2.4? That's the consensus that I'm
Yes.
hearing.
Yes.
And I agree with you, Andres, in terms of what else can we do in terms of the shuttle, and how can we make it easier for people to get around if they can't use the bridge?
And please, a slightly nicer looking bridge, if we can.
Sounds like we're heading in that
And I would
direction.
just say with the ADA compliance, and that's very important, also work with other organizations that can maybe look at other alternative.
Right. Are there
options.
synergies in
Yeah.
terms of others who might have?
Yes.
Yes, John?
Real quick, I know we're not in the design phase at all of this, but we've talked about the fact that this is a gateway to Highland Park. So I think whatever way we
You don't want my
choose-
hand-painted poster saying, welcome to
I think
HB?
we do need to invest something in
Make it look.
the aesthetic look there.
Absolutely.
So let's keep that in mind. Thank you.
Wait
Great,
a minute,
thank
wait
you.
a quick minute, just the point is that you could change the slope if you built a new bridge. I mean, wouldn't that be enough to?
I think based on what he's
Okay,
saying,
so
with
they
the
have to be 14
pilings
foot.
being at the angles that they're at, you
Yeah.
kind of have to work with what you've got. And it's the bridge deck that would be replaced.
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay. I don't think the other
If there's
questions
other-
can be answered at this point.
Yeah, if there's other feedback, I mean, we're preparing for the May
May
18th workshop.
Yeah.
If there's feedback, and then we have a good conversation, as part of the tour.
Right,
So,
right. Okay, great.
Did you have questions then?
Well, it was, how much debt are you comfortable with? And I don't think we have the answer to that question yet, and other revenue options we also need to talk about, I think, when we have more information. But at least the bridge question has been answered. So with that, I'm seeking a motion to adjourn this committee of the whole.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks so much. And our council meeting will start at